Hello, everybody. I'm Maria Cristina Shore. Thank you to be here. And also my name is, my maiden name is Maria Cristina Nisisaki Fukuda. Thank you for being here and hearing about my story about the Mexican-Japanese immigration to Mexico. I was born in Mexico City, Mexico, many, many years ago. I, I immigrated to Canada in 1983, 30 years ago. I married in Mexico with my Canadian husband, Raymond, and moved to Victoria, BC, and have a wonderful, beautiful son. His name is Vincent. I am a third generation Nikkei with 3 Japanese grandparents, Issei, and 1 grandmother Mexican. My parents were born in Mexico. They are Nisei. I studied at the University of Mexico, Bachelor of International Relations with the International Migration, International Law and Statistics with my colleague Norma Diaz. I have 3 siblings, Jose Luis, he's an architect, Marta Patricia, biologist, and Marco Antonio, a graphic designer. Some of you remember him. He used to make the piñatas for some events, beautiful piñatas. He is a Canadian too, but he moved to Mexico to help my other siblings to take care of my parents. I have been working at the Intercultural Association of Greater Victoria for 27 years and doing different jobs at the association as facilitator of the immigrant programs. And so I just want to say that I worked for the Intercultural Association for many years. I was involved in the immigrant women's program. I did some facilitating for the seniors group, and also I was helping in the settlement program in ICF. And then Tomoko Kada was my very supportive boss. And I was involved in many organizations, but the one I really enjoy and like, it was the Victoria Nickel Cultural Society, that is this one, that it started in 1999, but I was one of the founders with Tomoko and Sugio to the steering committee to form the Victoria Nickel Cultural Society as it is now. I also been involved with the OBON and all but one of the things I really enjoy, and this is one of my satisfaction, is I make all the piñatas of the 12 years, like all the years for the Chinese year horoscope for the native the New Year's. Then I really like to see all the children laughing and getting all the candies. So this was my sharing my Mexican culture with you, with the Japanese Canadian. And so that's my things I did. And also I'm sharing the culture, my 2 cultures, the Japanese and the Mexican, with dancing. I really enjoy that dancing. I enjoy with the Furusato dancers, and also with the Viva Mexico folklore dancers. I enjoy dancing and performing and sharing my culture with everybody. So this is my passion, and I really like that. And that's my life here. And then I will tell you about my family.
So, Christina, can you
Yes.
give us a short history of Japanese immigration to Mexico?
Yes. Okay, so I will, the Japanese came in 1894 when they opened the shogun, no, the shogun, 1868. They opened the doors to the Japanese. So my grandfather emigrated to Mexico from Kumamoto, south part of Japan. And they come from different prefectures. Hiroshima, Okayama, Yamaguchi, Fukuoka, Kumamoto, and the latest it was Okinawa. Well, my grandparents came from Kumamoto, and then it was it started from 1870, 1894. Okay, 1897. Sorry. So the first year they came to Mexico is in 1897, and they came 34 Japanese in the coffee plantation in the south part of Mexico in Oaxaca. No, Chiapas. It's called Escuintla. And they went to Puerto Madero, Chiapas, and then they, it was not very successful because it was very, the land, it was very hot, and they got sick, and some of them, and then they just didn't continue with the coffee plantations. Later, they become more kind of a general merchandise and pharmacies in Escuintla in Chiapas. They start marrying Japanese Mexican women, and they become very successful businesses, and they have a lot of, and they help the community to grow. And then when it was the revolution, very like unstable, so they have a lot of financial problems in Mexico. So after that, it came it's called Dekasegi. It's a labor migration. So the Japanese could leave Japan to work in different parts of the world, and then after go back to get money or knowledge and go back to Japan. So they call the Kagese. So and then it was in the 1901 to 1907, came 4,407 Japanese to the south part of Mexico in Oaxaca, where my grandfather went to Salina Cruz, and he worked there for 7 or 8 years. He all these companies, they were belong to Americans. So a lot of America, they would recruit Japanese and bring it to Mexico or United States or Canada. My grandfather got very sick. He got malaria. So then the people told them that you have to leave because it's very hot, humid, a lot of well, and they don't know the geography of there, so it was very extreme for Japanese or people. And then to the sugar cane is pretty hard job. So then he moved. So this is part of my grandfather's, but it came for the Kansegi 3 waves of groups. The other group, it was 1,400 people, and they worked for the railroads, and then they went to the state of Colima. Another group, 300 people went to coal mines in La Montaña Negra in Sonora. So all these are American companies because the Americans were, they have kind of they had the money, so they kind of opened their business. In 1901, 1907, there were more, the group, 3,000 people, also in the coal mines in Coahuila, the state of Coahuila, the north part of Mexico, is a lot of mines there. They have a cruel treatment. They have a very poor labor conditions. So a lot of them, they didn't want to stay, so they escaped, and they were moving to other places, and they start going to the north part of Mexico to go to the United States. Let's see. There's another slide there. Can you change the?
You want to go to the map?
Yeah, the map. Okay. Okay. So okay, this is the map. Okay. Can you see the arrow? No. Okay. So here is the map. The central part of Mexico is Mexico City, and then in the north is Mexicali and Calexico. So that part, it was the cotton fields, plantations in the north part of Mexico. Also, all these, the owners of the land, they were Americans. They rented to the Japanese, and it was very big community, around 1,000 people, Japanese descendants live there. So they have a school, they have a hall. So my grandparents in there, they didn't speak Spanish. It was only my mom. Because they didn't need to speak Spanish, because they could, they have businesses there, or business, pharmacies. Tijuana, a little bit in the left, and Ensenada, they are fishermen. So also the fishermen, the companies belong to Americans. So they sell all the products to the American companies. Okay. And a lot of Japanese, they wanted to go to United States. And then they went to Ciudad Juárez, like very close to the border, Piedras Negras and Nuevo León, all around the Rio Grande. So it was easier. It's like right now that's happening with the Mexican immigrants, or they wanna, or all the South American, they wanna cross that area. Right at that time, it was very easy to go, because it was only a gate, and they can go in and out. So it was easier to go there. So the American didn't like the Japanese, because in 1913 they prohibit to have any kind of a commerce with the Japanese living in Mexico. Okay, well, they still did it. A lot of businesses in Mexicali, they were very successful, because they open clubs, so they can sell alcohol. And then in United States, it was prohibited to drink alcohol. So they used to cross every day, or to go and drink in the Mexican soil and go back to United States. Okay, so, and then, so this is a little kind of a brief of, yeah, okay, so this is, yeah, you can go to the next one, the next slide. So this is the route for my grandparents, okay? So my mom and her family live in Mexicali. They go from there to Mexico City. This is when it was the Second World War, 1942. They had to, because in Mexico, no, it was the Pearl Harbor. After the Pearl Harbor, the Americans declared they had war with Japan, and Mexico declared the war to Japan. So then they had to move, because they were very close to the coast. Okay, they have to move to Mexico City. The Mexican government accepted go to Mexico City or Guadalajara, central part of Mexico, far away from the coast. And also all the people who live in the other parts of the frontier, they have to move there. Some, they were repatriated to Japan. They want to, and some, they went to United States to go to the camps in there. So so they have 10 days to leave the country, their belongings there, to travel in trains. And it's like a 5 days journey. And one of my mom told me this kind of a sad story about my grandfather. He used to like music. She said that my mom was 13 years old. The whole journey, he used to like music. So he was just throwing all the records at that time in like leaving them because he was very heartbroken. Anyway, so that's and then my grandfather's family, my grandfather's Nishizaki, he was from the Salina Cruz, Cruz, Iglesia, and then he went to Mexico, where he works in a house as a butler or as a server. My grandmother is a Mexican. Her name is Manuela Guzman. She was the housekeeper of that place. So my grandfather worked there for many years, and it's when they met. Then my grandfather decided to have a kind of a skill because he didn't speak any Spanish. Then he went to school at night and worked very hard in a barber shop. So he learned the skills, how to cut. He worked for 2 years, and they after that married my grandmother, and they opened a barber shop. The barber shop, he has two, and my grandmother used to help him. Now, my grandmother was the Mexican. She was very business oriented too. So she used to go to the auctions of land auctions, the property when they don't have they didn't pay the taxes. So she used to go there and buy property. So she got a few properties there. That's why they get some money. My grandma used to have a store. They used to sell a lot of items there. And what it was. Then my father, he became an architect, so he was building that um, building. It's called Mississauga Building in Tacubaya. Okay, so then we go to what else is something? Go to the next. Okay, so this is a book, very old book, and it's only Japanese from 1927. So these are the immigrants who came to Mexico. So they had all the pictures, the family history there. Unfortunately, I cannot read Japanese. Tomoko can. And then it's somebody. Um, you can go to the next slide. Is my they translated for me in English. So this is the story of my grandfather. Okay, so my grandfather went to immigrate in 1906 to Salina Cruz, worked for a Spanish family as a servant, and studied Spanish at nighttime. A very hard worker, he mastered to be a barber. After 3 years training, apprenticeship, he opened his barber shop, and then moved to another location, and he has two. And my grandmother used to help him. So he married my Mexican grandmother. Now the story was, that's what my father told me, is my grandfather sent money to Japan to get a wife. At that time, you can send money and photo and then bring it. So this lady was in her way to meet my grandfather, but she stopped in the way in the middle, and she never came to see my grandfather and marry him. So that's why my grandfather say, okay, I'm gonna marry a Mexican. So he married my grandmother. So that's a little bit a story about my grandfather. So it's And then the next slide is,
First, Christina, can I just quickly ask, what are
yes.
the two spellings for Nishizaki?
Okay, so this is an interesting story because my grandfather, well, he was learning Spanish, but everybody couldn't pronounce, the Mexican couldn't pronounce his last name. So he decided to change it to easy way to say it because in Spanish we don't have SH. Okay, Nishizaki. We use it, but we don't in some names we don't. So he changed it to Nisizaki. So in a way it's easier for so that's why his name is his name was Jose Nisizaki or Jose Hikosaku Nisizaki. So it was easier for the Mexicans to pronounce his last name. That's the reason. So that's why our is Nisizaki. But the real spelling is Nishizaki.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so this is my father's parents. So that's my aunt in the right hand side. Her name is Elenita. And then in the center is my grandmother. She's Mexican. She was from a state of she was from Tula. Yeah. And she was orphan. She took care of her two siblings, younger siblings. So that's why she was working as a home housekeeper for a house. So she was very active, and she was a very strong lady. So that's why he helped my grandfather. Yeah. And then there's my in the right hand side of my grandfather. His name is Javier. Now he was the junior, the first the son, and he studied to be he liked the militia. So at that time, Mexico couldn't accept a Japanese descendant to be in the army. So it was called Colegio Militar. So my grandfather, they had to do a test, and he went there to see his name was there, and it was not there. But at least it was in the first floor of the school. But at that time, the new, it doesn't do that anymore. The new students, they get kind of a harass for the old students. So somebody pushed my grandfather, and then he fell down one floor to the ground. So the school decided, because he was injured, the school decided to accept my grandfather, my uncle, to be at the Colegio Militar. So he became in the at the army, and he was a captain. Yeah.
And what was the common language among your family, your father's family?
My father's family is Spanish, because my grandmother didn't speak Japanese, and the mother tongue is the one who stays. So it was Spanish. Yes. Okay. So then they have so it's my father, another aunt Lydia and Yolanda, and they're still alive. Only my last aunt is Yolanda. All of them, they pass away. Yeah. And there's a farmer, the barber shop in Mexico City, in the Tacubaya. So it was quite popular. People like him. They make a lot of money. And so that's why he saved money for buying those properties. He still have. Well, yeah. Okay. Okay, so the next one. Okay, so here is, my father was an architect, and that's my niece. So my father built this, it's a house. for the chef. And the chef is very famous in Mexico. His last name is Nagaoka. So we always go there. So, and so all these helping and all that, he did volunteering his time because it was kind of a contribution to the Japanese community. So he did that. And also when they built the association of they also, it was a lot of volunteerings, their times, the architects, my father was one of them. And the association was built by uh, don by donation of money from the Japanese government and the Mexican government, and also one of the Japanese Issei, Matsumoto. He was he had a lot of land, so he donated the land, 10,000 square meters. So all that was donated. They don't. So that's why the association was established there in the 1950s. So they have a lot of activities there. There is a, it's called Nichiboku Kaikan. So they have we used to have a lot of events there, like so they used to have we used to have 4 schools, Japanese schools, Mexican Japanese schools from different prefectures. One ours it was Kumamoto, somewhere from Fukuoka, another it was Contreras, and like there were 4. And every year we used to have, it's called Undokai there. It's kind of a competition between schools. So it was fun. It was a lot of fun. We have a mochi, we have a sushi, and then it was a lot of seniors, children, the whole family competition. It was quite nice. Yeah. So it was that's yeah. And then here now, because they have more activities now, like this, so they have Dia del Niño, Day of Children's Day. So every year they have different activities. They have cultural events. They have a newsletter. But because of the pandemic, it's kind of a restrictions right now. But that's the history, a little bit of history of my background. Yes. And this is my mom's side, is Fukuda Fujimoto, from the north part of Mexicali. So they are all from Mexicali. That's my grandmother and my mom, Iwasiri. So cute. Margarita knew her. And then my grandfather is in the back. So these are from, and then in the right hand side of my grandmother, he is the brother, and he lives in United States. So he decided to move to United States. So this is so all of them from Mexico.
And what was the common language in your mother's family?
Japanese. That was Japanese. Yeah. Because it was a big Japanese community. Like all these people, the young people, they spoke Spanish, but most of them, they couldn't speak Spanish because they have a big Japanese community there. So they didn't need to learn Spanish. So that's why they communicate like here, for example. The children communicate, they speak the language, but not the parents. So they do the interpretation, they do translation and all that. Yeah. So that my grandmother, my aunt, and then all the Japanese, and Kimi-chan, I don't, well, is my mom very close friend. So she is there too. So they are from Mexicali. So they have to leave everything in 10 days to move to Mexico City. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then we are here, the 4 siblings. My brother Tony, I think some of them knew him. He used to do the piñatas, and he became Canadian. and then my brother Pepe, and then my sister. So my brother Tony is Canadian, but he moved to Mexico again to take care of my parents. And then in the back, there are those piles there. They have all the names of the pioneers that well, they are deceased now, but they had their names there. So by alphabetical order. Yeah. So this is in the Nichiboku Kaikan place. We call it Las Águilas. Even and even the street is called Fujiyama. They call it Fujiyama. Yeah. Okay, so that's my story. And you have any more questions? If I remember.
I have a few. How were the Japanese from the coast treated once they moved into Mexico City?
Can you repeat again, please?
How are the Japanese from the coast treated in Mexico City?
They were treated well because at that time it was an organization. It was called oh my God, how do you call it? It was like a Japanese association that helped to settle in Mexico City to get them food, accommodation, employment, financial assistance, and kind of help them there to establish in Mexico City. So my grandfather was one of the who kind of have an accommodation for some of the Japanese from Mexicali. That's why he met my mom.
And we have some audience questions. Isabel, Dirk,
Okay.
would you like to unmute yourself and ask a question?
Okay.
Hi, my name is Carlos.
Carlos.
I'm from Mexico. I grew up in Mexico City. I actually went to school, high school in Tacubaya.
Oh.
Yeah, Prepa 4. I don't know if you know. Yeah, it's a part of the University of Mexico. I was just wondering if you know around the place in Tacubaya. They had the building.
Uh-huh.
Was it a building there that
No, I think they demolished it. The Tacubaya school?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I went to Tacubaya too. Oh, that's nice. Maybe we were classmates, no? No, you are just so young. No, I think they demolished because they opened a liceo, you know, the liceo japonés?
Okay.
Yeah, they closed all the schools, the Japanese Mexican school, they closed it. And then they combined it with the liceo japonés, Mexico,
Okay.
in el Pedregal.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's very interesting story.
So you went to the Tacubaya school?
That's right. Yeah, there's a high school there that you go when you are from 16 to 18 years old.
Uh-huh.
Part of UNAM, which is the University of Mexico, and it's just before starting university there in Tacubaya.
Okay. And what is, you are a Japanese?
I know I'm Mexican. My wife is.
Your wife is Japanese.
Japanese, yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Deborah, I also see you had a question. You can also put it in the chat if you don't want to unmute.
No, that's okay. I think I'm muted now. Thank you. Cristina, it is I, and I was wondering, you told me one time about how many people moved to Mexico City that were they collectively moved to Mexico City during the time of having to move. Can you please I don't know if you said it while you were talking, but can you tell me approximately how many people were moved to this Mexico City and or Guadalajara from Mexicali and Tijuana and that? You know approximately how many there were?
About 1,000 people.
1,000 people. Okay, thank you. I just wasn't I wasn't sure. And then you mentioned that so when the war was over, were they repatriated back to the coastal area, or did they remain mostly in those cities?
Yeah, most of them they remain in Mexico City.
Okay.
Yeah, some people went back to Mexicali and Ensenada and other places, but the majority is stay in Mexico City or Guadalajara.
Okay, thank you. And then the other question I have, and somebody else can speak, is the people that went to the United States, were they put into like work camps at all? Like during this, I'm talking Second World War.
Yeah.
Were they put into work camps or interned just in some of the Japanese American camps?
The Japanese American camps.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a question from Jessica, and then we'll go Tomoko.
Yes, thank you so much. Well, first of all, thank you, Cristina, for for sharing so much of your personal history. I am also Mexican, descendants of Japanese, but I'm fourth generation, and I'm actually doing my research about the Japanese in Mexico. Anyway, yeah. So I actually have many questions, but so I was wondering where was your family concentrated? Because you said that they were displaced to Mexico City, but I wonder in what part of Mexico City were they living? And you showed a photograph of your family in which your father is absent, or it said he was not there. So I just wonder why he doesn't appear there.
Okay. He's not there because he wasn't born yet.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah. The only one, because this book is very old, 1920, like when they printed. So my father was born in 1926. So he was probably, he was not born yet.
Okay.
From my father down.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The places in Mexico City is in Mexico. You don't have like a Japanese town or like that. Everybody is scattered everywhere. Like they didn't stay in one place. They want to kind of adopt with all the Mexicans because they live there. So it was freedom for them to move around. Okay. The only people who couldn't do that, it was that they were sent to Temisco. Those people or those families, they have some kind of a connection with military in Japan. So they kind of have a closer eye to them. But the rest of them, they went to any place in Mexico City. Most of them, they settle in Tacubaya. And then other places, they start moving, I think, Contreras and other places.
Yes. Oh, excellent. And yes, actually, this is very connected to what you mentioned about the freedom of movement in many places where the Japanese were concentrated. And I know there was also Rancho El Batán in Mexico City, where some people were sent, about 1,000 people, and other places across Mexico. And well, I think you mentioned that perhaps Michel, if I pronounce your name correctly, Ave, has also read this book. And I wonder if it's the same book by Yasutaro. I don't know if it's Yasutaro or Chu Taki, who published it in 1927. But I think Japan was very interested in recording the historical social status and caste categories of Japanese people who had migrated to Mexico, and to trace their social mobility and trajectories. So I just wonder, because we have many people who migrated from places that were traditionally considered where outcasts, like from the Tokugawa period, lived. So I wonder whether these communities also might have faced discrimination within the Japanese community, and whether that might have translated in more vulnerability during the Second World War. So I wonder whether Mexican Japanese, differentiated between those who were deemed outcast, according to the Mibun system, and perhaps also that impacted on the kind of freedoms that they were afforded or not during the Second World War.
I don't have the answer because I didn't encounter anything like that, but I remember the prefectures. They didn't like each other too much. So maybe it was some kind of a discrimination, or didn't want to get together with them. So I really don't know about that answer because I didn't have it. But yeah, they suffer some discrimination. Probably if you were poor, and some people, they were rich. But most of the time, at that time, they helped each other because they were displaced from other, like they didn't have anything. So they help each other. Even the rich people in Mexico City, they help the newcomers to settle in, and then they try to help them to settle in. So I don't know about the discrimination. Maybe they were discriminated by the Mexicans, not too much, but there were sometimes they tell names, and then you say, oh, I am Mexican, and say, no, you are not Mexican, you're Japanese. But I didn't, this is my story. I didn't feel it myself. Probably other people had their own point of view, but for me, it was okay. It was fine with me.
Yes.
I didn't feel discrimination. People accept me as I was. And they have Japanese friends and Mexican friends, and they always accept me as I was. Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. And Tomoko? You to unmute? Or you can type it in the chat. We can't hear you. Do you have a microphone, or can you type the question?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. We can hear you now.
Yeah, okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you,
Thank
Cristina. It's very informative informations. Also, I'd like to say hi to Margarita and Tony. Yeah, we met in Mexico City for Tony. Yeah, I've known him for a long time. Just one question. In Canada and the States, we had this redress movement. But how about in Mexico? Did it happen or?
No, they don't. No,
why?
I don't know about this, but they didn't receive any money from the Mexican. The only money they received, the Mexican government give to the Japanese, it was the money, it was confiscated to the Japanese workers. Like for example, my grandfather, he was a cotton, he has a cotton plantation, and then that year they got a lot of kind of a good crop, and then he was ready to sell it, but the American company gave them half of the price, and then the Mexican government froze their assets. So they didn't get too much money, so they kept it. Then with that money, they use it for the kind of have a peace treaty with Mexico and Japan, and they return that money or return it to the Japanese government. So that's why they open, they have money for the building to have like a connection between Japan and Mexico. I don't know if they get the money. Like my family didn't get any money from resettlement. Yeah. So I have to find out with the new needs people who are administrating there. But since I've been known, the people I know, they didn't receive any money back as a resettlement. Yes. Yeah. So maybe we have to find out. Yeah, because they should, because they lost everything. Yeah, they lost.
Thank you, Tomoko. Miyako has a question in the chat. I'll just read it out for you. I know that Cristina speaks Japanese. Did you learn the language in your childhood, or was there a community school that taught the language?
Oh, first, I don't speak Japanese very well. I just say, "Ohayou gozaimasu," I understand, but I don't speak well. My mom used to speak very well, mom, because both parents were Japanese. My mom tried to teach us, but because my father didn't speak Japanese, so then we have to go to school. So that's why I went with Margarita, my friend. But then you don't use it, you lose it. So I lose my, I tried again to kind of like get it, but yeah, yes. So no, I don't, Spanish for sure.
And Debbie again has a question.
Hi, Cristina. It's me again.
Yeah.
Just question about going back. I had an opportunity to go to San Francisco 2 years ago for the Kopani conference, which is a international conference of mostly Spanish speaking communities, South America, but also including Mexico and some Central American countries, Canada, Japanese. It's the Japanese heritage peoples that are living in these various countries. And I had that opportunity to attend, and it was a very interesting meeting. And one of the outbreak rooms that I went to, there was a professor from Mexico City who has been working on a program to with people of Japanese Mexican descent, working to try and find their past history. Connecting to Japan. Have you heard anything of that just from a different perspective? I just been curious because they did make a good presentation, and the people that some of them were there, but that they talked about, they were quite excited to be able to come to know a time, the people from before. So I just wondered if you'd have that opportunity.
No, I didn't have any opportunity to do that, but I'm very interested and to find out more about my background, because I don't have too much information from my father. Can give us some history, but nothing more, because I don't know which part of, I know it's in Kumamoto, but we don't know which part of the city or to find out all that information. So it would be interesting to find out.
Oh, thank you. That sounds good. I was interested in your book, dated in 1927, and I thought, I wonder if the professor has seen this book, or if it was just one that was handed out to the community as the community at that time, and then may not have got into, a library. So it was very interesting to see that. So thank you very much.
Yeah. No, I think that book is only people who are in that book, they give it to them.
Okay.
It's only Japanese. There are other books, and I just find one, and it's called Chronicles or the Pioneers Chronicles of the Mexican, but this is in Spanish.
Okay.
Japanese and Spanish.
In Spanish. Okay. Well, I read both fluently. Not.
Okay, good.
So
I can give it to you then.
Thank you very much, Cristina, for this.
Thank you. Oh, well, this is good. This is interesting. Yeah. Yeah, they have the Pan American Nikkei every year, I think, in different places.
Yeah, or every 2 years.
Every 2 years. Yeah. I didn't have the opportunity to go to any of them, but I remember one of the kind of the head of that. His name is Carlos Kasuga, and then he knew Dick Nakamura. They have a little chat there. Yeah.
Yes, it was really enlightening, and for anybody who else might ever have that opportunity, in San Francisco, they had translators because people were speaking Japanese, Spanish, Portuguese, English. Okay. And so it took a long time to go through some of the outbreak rooms, but it was definitely interesting. And from my perspective, it was good to hear of the connections between the groups of people, just between North and South America, and how they came to as an immigrant and how they lived in the community. So it was a good opportunity.
Well,
thank you for your time.
For sharing. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Jessica, we have time for your last question. Do you want to say it with your mic?
Yes, of course. Sorry about that. Sorry, I just wonder whether if you know anything about Hacienda El Batán in Mexico City and what happened to people who work there, and also if you could expand a little bit more about what you mentioned regarding the concentration of people who were related to the Japanese, I think you mentioned army, in Hacienda de Temixco.
Okay, so El Batán, it was belonged to Mr. Matsumoto, who had like a lot of fields, flower fields. So it was a big place. So because they came so many Japanese with all her belongings to Mexico City. So the only place they can accommodate that a lot of people, it was there. So they were there, they settled, and then after they start, the other people, like my grandfather, other Japanese, Mexican, they start looking for accommodation for for the families who were in the Batan. Okay, so then after that, they just moved to housing, to settle. So that's why they used the El Batan there. So my mom was there. My mom was there, her family, and then after she was moved to one of my grandparents' place. And
yes, just sorry about that. I heard from some Nisei people who were also living in Tlalpan. You know, some people were there. That some people at El Batán were kind of exploited, like they were not being paid. For their labor. So I wonder if you perhaps also heard something about that, or
no, I didn't. No, because that was my mom's time. So my mom time just told me that we were there, and then after they moved to the place they were living. I don't know if they were working there, if they were exploited. I don't know. It could happen because they are vulnerable, and some businesses they did that, but I'm not sure. So I think you have to find somebody else to okay. For the Temisco, it was families who had connections with the Japanese army, or somebody kind of influential in Japan. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you a story that my mom told me, and the friend, her friend is a Japanese Mexican. They live there. Their last name is Miyamoto. Okay, it's a big family, and the Sekiguchi, so they have a lot. So her name is Mariko. So she told us that her brother, he was in the military in Japan, the oldest, and he was a kamikaze. He say goodbye to the mom and the brothers, sisters, like they were leaving. He was leaving because he knew he was not going to come back. So he was ready to take they used to give them kind of something to drink. Okay. So he was ready to take it, just to get ready and start flying. in that time when that happens, fortunately, or his luck, they stop the war. They say it's no more war, which the Japanese just declare kind of they are not in war anymore. So he didn't drink it. He didn't go. So he was alive. Then he went back to his family. And the mother and the family, she thought he was a ghost because they were expecting him to be dead. So he said, no, 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 you are not my son. You are a ghost. Go. They said, no, I didn't go. So this is that's why their family has to be in a certain place. And after that, he moved to Mexico City and live in Mexico. Yeah. But those families, they were kind of they thought they were spies or something. So they want to keep annoying. And yeah. So this is the story of my mom's best friend. That's why it's a lot. Yeah. Probably it's more stories in there.
Yes.
That's my story. Yes.
Yeah.
That I remember. And they told me. Yeah.
Yes.
Nothing is written in paper.
Yes.
Okay. Something else that you want to know?
Well, I suppose what I had heard a little bit about that, but more in relation to Perote in Veracruz. People who were kind of incarcerated there. But no, I hadn't heard about the stories that you mentioned about the Mixco. And no, I think it is, yeah, it is great that you're sharing your story, and I think it is very important to listen from you. I wonder whether, I mean, what are your feelings about this lack of redress movement or lack of an apology from the Mexican government? Because I suppose many Mexican Japanese families actually like that this experience was very harmful to them. Do you think, or maybe not? I don't know what are
your. In reality, it was not so bad for the Japanese Mexican in Mexico because they were accepted in Mexico. Okay, so they can travel around there. They were free to travel. They were free to work. They were free to go to school. They didn't impose to have a stay in a one place, and then you have to stay there 24 hours, 365 days. Okay, so it's I don't think they feel they need to apologize. I'm not sure. Okay, but the Mexican treat the Japanese because they admire the Japanese. They are hard workers, honest, so they always kind of have a high expectation. They have the Japanese little bit high, and then they didn't probably the before they used to be chased by the treated, discriminated, but in my time, no. So I don't know if the old generation, they will ask for compensation or like here happening. So it has to come from the people who are in there in Mexico, the Japanese, and a lot of them, they get a lot of help from the Mexican government. So I'm not sure if they're gonna. Probably it would be some families or something that they would like to do that, but I don't know about this because I just came a long time ago here, so I'm not involved too much in the association there. So I knew more. So I probably you know more than I do because you are young and you are. How long have you been in Canada?
Well, I actually live in Cambridge in the United Kingdom, but I just came here to study for my PhD, but I'm from Mexico City.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, you are from Mexico City. Okay. But
yeah.
you don't, okay. So you came to study.
Yes.
Oh,
Well,
yeah. Oh, that's nice. That's not well. We can communicate, or you can connect with me, and it's okay.
Definitely. Yes, I would love to maybe send you a message. So maybe I'll write to you like a private message or something.
Yeah. Maybe I can connect with some people in Mexico City, and then you can talk to them.
We can connect you as well.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Well, I think we'll wrap things up. Thank you everyone for coming, and thank you so much, Cristina, for sharing your story. Any last words?
Well, thank you very much for listening to my story. We keep the three cultures now: Mexico, Japan, and Canada, Victoria. That because now live in Victoria. So this is a good kind of building the communities between because everybody is the same. Yes. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.